Today, we're looking at a blue ink by Waterman Serenity Blue. Hi, I'm Adam, and I'm an ink guy. I get inks, test them, and share the results with you. Now, as always, there's timestamps down below so that if you're in a hurry, you can skip around. But if you got the time, check out the entire video. Also, if you're interested, you can follow me over on Instagram. And if you're new here, I would invite you to subscribe. I do a new ink review daily. In order to make sure I have a range of experience with this ink, I do the writing samples. I then put it into this nib assigned Singularity with a fine nib. I write with it for a day. I then use it to take the notes for this video. For the first writing sample, I use Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper. There are additional writing samples later in the video. Now, let's look at the writing sample. Well, originally I did pick this up in sample form. I've gone to this in bottles and have gone through quite a few bottles. I probably go through at least a bottle of this a year. This is my fourth bottle of this ink, so it is to me a very good ink. To keep my writing samples consistent, I use a Jinhao 159 with a Goulet 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X 450 with a Goulet medium, and a Jinhao X 750 with a Goulet extra fine. Let's take a look at the Clairfontaine. We get no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 is no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, and 10 seconds to dry. The medium is darker than the extra fine, about the same tone as the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 14 seconds to dry. Scrubby for both show us no color variation, and we're really not getting it. Tomoe River. No bleeding, not too bad for Tomoe River ghosting. The 1.1 is no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade. Extra fine is lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 14 seconds to dry. Medium is darker than the extra fine with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 20 seconds to dry. Scrubby for both show us no color variation, and we didn't get any. And Rhodia, with no bleeding and no ghosting. The 1.1 is no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. Extra fine is lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 11 seconds to dry. Medium is darker than the extra fine, even darker than the stub. No feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 15 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show us no color variation, and we didn't get any. I agree with Vita that I've learned a lot by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. I put a line of ink down and immediately put it into water for 10 to 15 seconds. And we see this is a good prime blue. It pushes its way up, leaving a little bit of ink as it's moving up. It's bonding slowly with the paper. The one on the right I let dry for 10 minutes before I dunk it into water. And we do see a blue line gathering at the bottom, giving you an idea that it might have some permanence. But spoiler, this ink really doesn't. Resistance tests are done to see how well this ink can be expected to perform on the page, and more importantly, how hard it might be to clean from your pen. I let the smear dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, I wouldn't use it in a note-taking situation if I needed to go back and highlight. Water is completely reactivating and lifting it off the page. With only 30 seconds, we're starting to see the white of the paper coming through. Pen flush does everything that water does and nothing more, because water's all that you're really going to need. And 1/3 bleach solution does completely remove it, but it leaves this weird kind of staining on the paper afterwards, but you're not going to need that. For the inks I've tested, I have found an average viscosity of 2.5, with a realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. Now I'm going to link the video that shows how I do my testing and calculations. Waterman's Serenity Blue has a viscosity of 1.72, making this a wetter ink. To find my average dry times, I use my writing samples done on Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper. I average all 6 of those numbers. Now, for the inks I've tested, I found an average dry time of 17 seconds, with the realm of normal being from 13 to 21 seconds. Waterman Serenity Blue has an average dry time of 14 seconds, so despite it being a wetter ink, its dry time is normal. Instead of finding inks that look like Waterman Serenity Blue, I would prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. I wanted a nice orange and chose Robert Oster's NG Special. The second writing sample is done on yellow Rhodia, Life, and G-Lalo paper. Here we're looking at the yellow Rhodia. This is not so much to see its performance, but to see what kind of tone change we go through for having yellow paper in the background. And we see that it does turn a little bit towards the teal, not all the way to green. So it's definitely making a tone shift. It's just something to be aware of, especially on the extra fine, if that's what you're using in a professional environment. I think the medium you might get away with, but there's definitely a teal lean there. Things to be aware of. Life paper. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 is no feather, spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is lighter than the stub with no feather, spread, halo sheen, no shade, and 9 seconds to dry. Medium is quite a bit darker than everything else on the page with no feather, spread, halo sheen, no shade, and 13 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show us no color variation because we're not getting it. And last up is G-Lalo. It's a gray paper. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 is no feather, spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is lighter than the stub with no feather, spread, halo sheen, or shade, and 8 seconds to dry. Medium, quite a bit darker than everything on the page with no feather, spread, halo sheen, no shade, and 10 seconds to dry. The scrubbies show us no color variation, and we're not getting it in the writing, and that is all that I have for the writing samples. So what do I think of Waterman Serenity Blue? And this is where I get off the Waterman hate train, because Waterman Serenity Blue is one of my favorite inks to use. I've gone through a number of bottles of it. Now, it shades pretty nice. It's very gentle on the pens. It is almost always the first ink that I put into a new pen to get used to how that pen writes. I love this ink and how well it does go down. However, you have to be a fan of this shade of blue in order to enjoy it. What nib and pen is going to give the best writing experience with this ink? I see this as dealer's choice. I believe this ink to look good out of every pen that I've put it into. Tell me if you've put it in a pen and didn't like what it looked like. I don't know that there's many people out there unless they just hate this ink. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, and thanks for watching.